Welcome to the 10th episode of season 2 of the CSA Fireside Chat. We have come a far way, going across almost all regions of the Commonwealth. We're back in Asia, and we are joined by leaders, student and youth leaders from Pakistan. I am Benjamin Fraser. I have the honor of serving the organization as its chairperson, and I'm going to invite my guests to introduce themselves, starting with Khadija.
Hi everyone, myself Khadija Shakur from Pakistan. I'm still doing my bachelor's. I'm an undergraduate. This year I'm going to graduate. I'm pursuing my degree in nutrition. So I have done so many nutrition campaigns, held camps where we give awareness about nutrition, and I've been to different exchange groups where there's a society called Alif Se Insaf, where we get this, where we spread across the world about how important it is, the rule and regulation. And I've been general secretary of debating society of my own university society. I've been doing MUNs, and I've just undergraduate, uh, pursuing my things in different organizations. This is the one of the main organization I've been part to. So this is a big achievement for me.
Thank you. And importantly, Khadija was recently appointed
Yes.
as one of the country representatives for Pakistan. Her colleague Danish Tariq is the other country rep. Kasim, so honored to be with you on this chat, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, Benjamin. Glad to be here. Hi, everyone. My name is Qasim Farasat, and I am from Pakistan, currently residing in Canada. I'm the former Asian regional representative of the Commonwealth Youth Council. I've had the privilege to serve to the council for 4 years, from 2018 to 2022, and lots of milestones achieved during that tenure. Working for the youth in the Asian region of the Commonwealth. We were able to establish the Youth Council's youth participation platform in the Commonwealth Asian region, a region-wide youth body as the first initiative to unify the 700 million plus young people of the Asian region. And we will have more discussion about our learnings and experience through that position. I've had the privilege to work with the Commonwealth Students Association as well for a few different initiatives within the region and within the Commonwealth. Currently, I'm the co-founder of the Institute for Sustainable Development and Cooperation. It is an organization that is working for the youth empowerment. We're currently focusing on establishing youth participation platforms that could allow them to participate in policy and decision-making processes. You're based in Canada, but we are in an international organization, and we're working with organizations within Canada and abroad.
Thank you. But I just have to invite you to highlight that it was during your tenure, Kasim, that Pakistan established its first youth council. I have that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes, so a few years from now, you'll be celebrated in history books. That's a big deal. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, and we're joined by Danish. Danish, I know you just got in, but we're just doing introductions. Do you want to introduce yourselves for our listeners?
Yep, sure. First of all, hi Benjamin, hi Khadija, and hi Qasim. It's good to be here. I'm sorry I'm late. So everyone, this is Danish. I'm the recently selected country rep for the CSA. Apart from that, I'm working as the governing board member with Youth Advocacy Network and as the communication officer with Chanan Development Association. I've been working in the development sector as the development practitioner for almost 10 years, and it's so good to be here.
Okay, wonderful. So we're going into the meat of the matter. Today, our discussion is about the role of higher education in combating violent extremism in Pakistan. The panelists are from Pakistan. I'm from Jamaica. I'm going to be the student on this matter on behalf of all the listeners. So I'll be asking questions on your behalf to learn, as I am not versed on the issue other than what I've read. They have the lived experience of growing up in Pakistan, being Pakistani. So which one of you will describe for us Pakistan, telling us about the population, language, history, economy, and just life growing up in Pakistan?
I think the young ones would have a better valuation of that because they're living. I mean, I'm living abroad right now, and then there are the current ones who are experiencing how the education is affecting the lives of the young ones, and how it's impacting the mindset. So,
Khadija, do you want to take it up, and then Danish could pick up where you leave?
so I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. So you want me to start and then?
No, I suggested Khadija, based on what you
Khadija, yeah.
said.
I
Yes,
think
Khadija.
Yep.
Hi. Pakistan, basically, I wanted to introduce Pakistan, our formal introduction. Pakistan, officially known as the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, is a sovereign nation located in South Asia, established on August 14, 1947. Following the partition of British India and Pakistan, emerged as an independent state to address the aspiration of Muslims in the region. This is the country we have built for Muslims, basically, with a population of approximately 240 million right now, and Urdu is our official language. English is also in formal ways. The country boasts a rich tapestry of linguistic and cultural diversity, including Punjabi, Sindhi, Pashto, and Balochi. So our capital is Islamabad, and living here means interacting with different diverse cultures all day. Basically, in my university, it's a diverse culture, all Pashtuns, Balochis. So it's not just a less diverse country. It's basically enhanced as a diversity. Pakistan economic landscape is characterized by a blend of agriculture, manufacturing, and services sectors. Major crops here are wheat, rice, cotton, and while industries such as textiles, which is a very important industry here in Pakistan, contributes significantly to the GDP. It is the realm of geopolitics. Pakistan plays a pivotal role participating in regional and global alliances. Despite its achievement, Pakistan grapples with issues such as terrorism, ethnic, sectarian tensions, and socio-economic imbalances. So, in a summary, Pakistan's journey since independence reflects a complex interplay of history, culture, and geopolitics, shaping a nation with a distinctive identity and a significant role in a global community. So, living in Pakistan, you interact with different kind of people, have an enriched culture. So, it's for good living in Pakistan.
Thank you, Khadija. That was apt
Welcome.
and succinct. But follow me on this journey here. The media coverage of the issue we'll be discussing today gives a sense that Pakistan is unsafe. There are certain feelings that may come, but I now follow Danish, and I see the way he romanticizes Pakistan. I see the way you love Pakistan. It's your home. I want to hear from that personal perspective, Danish. Tell me about Pakistan, not just what the internet says or what I can read in a storybook.
First of all, I think Khadija has mentioned pretty comprehensively about the demographics and about the other thing Pakistan has and
Indeed.
has to offer. Coming up to your question, I think Pakistan is a feeling. Nobody from outside can feel it the way the people live here or visit here can feel that. I have seen many vloggers coming from different parts of the world, and when they live here, they actually feel that what Pakistan has to offer. It is a peaceful country, but I believe that no country is free of any sort of hate or any sort of extremism. So, Pakistan is a lovely country. The people are very peaceful, very hospitable here. There are four weathers. Pakistan offers four weathers here, and the culture of different sorts of tastes, different sorts of clothing are offered here, and I don't think so that anything is like the how the media actually portrays anything like that is here, because there are downsides and downfalls of every country, and we see in even in the Western world that there are both sides of the coin which are in a country. So
Indeed.
yeah, Pakistan is a pretty peaceful country and people are lovely here.
Indeed. Thank you. Thank you. You know, I really, the CSA Fireside has a lot of potential. You know, it's young people telling stories in their own voice and language. And I think we have the potential to rewrite narratives. So much has been said about our countries that are considered part of the global south to make us seem, sometimes it's dehumanizing the way how our countries are depicted. So using this platform to tell of what we think of our own home, I think is also part of the CSA's agenda, to educate and to promote education. Yes. So now let's distill this issue of violent extremism. Define violent extremism. Kasim, can you take that up for us?
Yeah, it's complex. I think it involves different perspectives, right? I mean, there's a definition from, like, the cultures define it differently. Regions, countries. So in Pakistan, I think if you talk about violent extremism, it's been anything that, impacts other people's lives.
Mm.
Could be, and I don't want to say it, but like acts of, terrorism, acts of, you know, extremism, so that, it kills someone, it ends someone's life, it harms somebody. So I think that's, for me, is like the definition that I've seen in Pakistan. Generally, I think from the world's perspective, it's anything where you are imposing your own culture, beliefs, learning, experience onto someone else. This is how I understand extremism.
Yes.
It may sound like way too hard to define extremism, because that's pretty normal for us to do. This is how we develop ourselves. Like, we have those conversations, argument, discussions. But I think there's a very fine line between, or a very fine boundary between where you share your own experience, learning, beliefs, culture, versus imposing your own beliefs, culture, learning, and experience, right? If you couple that with violence, it's like when you back it up with action. So if you and I have an argument and I impose my belief and culture on you,
Yes.
that's extremism.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then if I couple that with violence, if I go in a fight with you, or if I do any act that could physically harm you, mentally harm you, then I feel that's like violence and extremism together. And I'll just go a little far on that, because I've used a few examples where, they might seem like, acts of, like I've said, acts of terrorism. So I feel the concept of educating people, using higher education. When we say higher education, I mean, we are trying to achieve the objective of education, right? So we're saying, like, we want to educate our young people by getting them through the higher education. So what education does, right? Higher education, secondary, middle, whatever, like whatever category that is, like the objective of education for countering extremism, violence, extremism, it opens up your mind, right? It opens you up towards listening and understanding other people's perspective. Having that acceptance that maybe you have a different way of, enjoying yourself, having a different way of, um, having different religious beliefs, practicing, uh, different cultures that you have in your country, and me having to accept that. Sure, I can have my own perspective, I can have my own ways and my own culture, but that doesn't mean that I have to impose that onto you. So I feel when we talk about education, what that does is that it gives you acceptance. It allows you to, allow others to live their own life, basically, right? We'll expand more on it, of course, but this is how I define in a very basic understanding, very basic through my experience. I mean, I'm not going for the textbook definition here, that what extremism is, how it becomes violent, and how education can, play a role in countering and combating all of that.
Yes, yes. And I would like to expand on this
Yeah.
because I appreciate one, how you've simplified it, and the way that you have distinguished the motive behind the act versus the act itself. Because when I look at my country, which has one of the highest homicide rates in the world, somewhere like 53 per 100,000. In Pakistan, I'm seeing in 2021, it's 4 per 100,000. So in terms of murder, Jamaica is way more on the scale than Pakistan. But I don't hear the phrase violent extremism being used in my country. When I look at mass shootings in America, literally going into high schools, primary schools, and slaughtering, the media doesn't cover it as violent extremism, which I think in itself is complex. But what our listeners should get from your explanation, Kasim, is it becomes violent extremism when we attach some sort of persuasion.
Yeah.
We're imposing a viewpoint, a belief, and we're doing it, we're using violence to achieve that purpose.
Yep. No, that's what I exactly mean.
Yes.
And this is what I've experienced. I've lived in the West for a long time, and I think the difference where, we, like how you explained that, there is crime, there are acts where, we are going into or we are like impacting other people's life, but it's not called extremism.
Yes.
Because it is not coupled with the fact that there are more like emotions involved to impose yourself onto others, right? And that's what makes it really hard and complex. And I feel that's a lot because of, I mean, if we talk about the countries in the East, the culture is really strong there, right? So I think that's another difference that I've realized in comparison to the West.
But do you find,
yeah,
do you find, Kasim, that it is so easier for the media to label acts in Pakistan as extremism because you're a Muslim nation and they have attached that sort of trait or characteristic to the Muslim world?
Yeah.
The Hollywood has a way.
Yeah.
The media has a way. For Jamaicans, we're all Rastafarians. We
Yeah.
all smoke marijuana.
Yeah.
If you're from Trinidad and Tobago, you're all in Calypso. If
Yeah.
you're from Fiji, all of you walk barefoot. That's the way they want to depict us.
Yeah.
So it's easier for them to say any act, even sometimes without properly investigating it. Once
Yeah.
it's located in a Muslim country,
Yeah.
it's an act of extremism.
Yeah. And I think that's how it's been for the last few, I would say maybe a couple decades, right? So I agree, like it's about the projection of a narrative, and the narrative has been that, there has been a lot of extremism and terrorism in, for example, in the Muslim countries or in the eastern part of the world or in the developing countries, let's put it that way. But it's really about the young people to change that narrative, and that's really what makes me excited.
Yes.
Especially through my learning that I had working with the youth council, that we have the power to change all the narratives, and we're observing that. I think this recent conflict between Palestinians and Israel, it's kind of opening up how people are perceiving compared to what how it's been projected by the media, right?
Yes.
So it has really changed the minds, or has really educated people on the real issue and the problem, and then has allowed them to make a decision who they want to support, instead of the other way around, where the media is projecting a narrative and you're just buying into it without really understanding what the problem is, what the cause is. So when somebody imposes a banner or a brand onto somebody else, I feel it's really complex to, and I feel we should all stay away from it, because the dynamics are really complex. Like, for example, when you talk about highest homicide rate in your country versus the extremism that is there in Pakistan, they both have like complex definitions behind it, right? It's not as easy as it looks that everyone is doing some specific act in one country. No, it's not like that. And that's where the young people come in. That's where our power comes in, to change that narrative through initiatives such as yours, through arguments, to discussions, through participating in platforms where we're able to speak up, share our perspectives. So yeah, I think that's the positive side of it, and I'm really hopeful, really hopeful, that our young people will definitely change all of these ongoing platforms, mechanisms that are counter effective in promoting
Yes.
peace and security.
Yes. Yes. I'd like to hear from each of the panel members. Explain more in detail how religion and politics influence violent extremism. Danish.
Yep. Thank you, Ben. Firstly, Qasim has very clearly mentioned about the violent extremism. I just want to emphasize on few things, that why Pakistan has been portrayed like that, because the religious sentiments are pretty strong here. And I think due to few bad things or few violent things, it has been associated with the religion and culture. That is why, being the Muslim country, they actually associated that they are the root causes of violent extremism. So this is the case. That is why Pakistan has been imaged like that, and Jamaica is not. Just the thing you mentioned. So I think violent extremism is just that you have a belief and you are just stamping it to any other person who doesn't want to digest that or doesn't want to take it, and you are using different methods and to just complete that goal, accomplish that goal. That could be terrorism, that could be through bad politics, that could be like anything that goes beyond or that goes against the human nature and human willingness. So that is it. And particularly about the religious thing, I know that the religion has nothing to do with that. It has only to do with the people. Religion has nothing to do with that. We have seen the violent extremism cases in the Western countries as well, and they have been again portrayed. And if somebody from the Western country, Western national is doing that, then that has been associated with the bad mental health or something like that, but not his or her religion. But whenever there's anyone Muslim or with a beard, that is associated with only being Muslim. So I think that is the thing. That is why it's been only associated with the religion, uh, although it has nothing to do with that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Khadija, do you have any comments on how religion and politics influence violent extremism?
Yeah, as Danish said, we are a Muslim country, and that's a very pivotal point. When West do these things, they just label it, just like Dani said, as a mental health issue, and as Pakistani or other Muslim countries do it as terrorism or other things. They just label it as something like terrorist attack and all this stuff. So religious is a very pivotal point here playing. And other than that, there is two major things: ethnic and sectarian tensions. Pakistan is an ethnically and religiously diverse country, right? Tensions between different ethnic and sectarian groups have occasionally led to violence. That's a main factor of violence here. Extremist ideologies exploiting these differences can contribute to radicalization. So this is a very important point that ethnic and sectarian tensions in Pakistan lead to these extremist groups. That's why these acts of terrorists are happening, or people may influenced by these acts.
So far, I've not heard anyone say anything about politics. So should I take it then that politics is not really a variable in violent extremism in Pakistan?
It is. History and politics are both hand by hand, right? Historical events happening in Pakistan, including partition of British India in 1947, right, have left a lasting impact on the region. Just like political instability, military coups, and conflicts with neighboring India, particularly over Kashmir issue, and have contributed to a complex socio-political environment. The history and our political context, these are the major, you can call it root cause of terrorism somehow. So these are playing a very significant role here.
Well, no, permit me, team. I really am curious. Why do things like bomb up public areas? Why not picket fence? What do you think motivates that? Why not do something demonstrative, but less likely to take human lives? What is the motivating factor behind that?
I can take that. I can say something about it. I mean, it's like I said, it's complex. Like it's not very easily definable, right? Based on my personal learning and experience, again, this may not be the right answer for some, but I feel and one of the reasons is politics. You mentioned politics, so there are different political gains, and then unfortunately, in developing countries, you could use people as resources because it's easier to, like, money has an influence, so it's easier to generate different kind of acts by financially funding them, right? And humans are used as resources in you know in performing those acts. Well, we've seen like weapons and other things that have been manufactured for promoting violence. I feel like for developing countries, humans are still unfortunately a resource that can generate violence through acts of suicide bombing or target killing and those kind of things. So politics is one, of course. Then there are different there are political agendas, there are agendas of different ethnicities, there are agendas of different religions. Again, the whole idea comes back to the same thing. Like, no matter what you discuss, no matter how much you stretch on it, it comes to the same fact that, when you're trying to overstep the boundary or, go beyond your boundary and step into someone else's life, imposing your own culture, religion, faith, then that's where the problem comes in. And then that's where everyone around you starts exploiting it. So right now, the four of us are having this conversation in a very peaceful way. But the moment we go a little outside of our boundary, right, people around us will start exploiting it for their own personal gains. Right. So that's a very simple example to explain. So if they see an opportunity around you, like whoever it is, and like I said, it does not necessarily mean that it's international partners who are trying to attack a specific country. It could be people from the same country just having different political beliefs, different ethnicities, different religion. they see an opportunity and then they start creating that, violence extremism. The whole idea is that how do you counter that? How do you put a stop to it? How do you train your brain that you don't find these things productive or having any effectiveness towards the differences that we have? And the only solution to that, and I really believe in it, is education. And that is the way forward. When you're educated, and the difference that we have in compared to another group is actually education. The fact that we're having this conversation in a peaceful manner is that we're all educated. You're giving us an opportunity because you're eager to learn and understand. And that's what you've learned from your education. And we are eager to share our experience without being very sensitive about it while you're asking us questions, difficult questions. Is also because we are educated and we understand that this is how two people interact peacefully.
Yep.
So I think the whole idea, the whole theme has to be that. And then there are different forms, different narratives, there are different agendas, motivations that could lead to violence extremism. So it's really hard to explain and define that.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think you gave me a few chills there, Kasim, because you hit the nail on the head. We often see education as just being to create employees, people who can go in an office or a factory line or go do some work or invention. But education helps us to coexist as humans. When we learn to appreciate the differences in one another, even just by being acclimated towards learning, having an appetite for learning, it reduces the animosity. It deflects against simple and unnecessary misunderstandings. So you are very right. And it helps us answer the question, what is the role of higher education in combating violent extremism? Get more people in learning spaces. Get more people to appreciate and want knowledge and want to be a part of an education system where they grow and learn. Love it. So my next question, how has the government of Pakistan responded to the issue of violent extremism? Anyone on the panel describe interventions, perhaps laws or programs to combat violent extremism?
Ben, before coming to this particular question, I just want to connect a dot with what Kasim has said, and that
Sure.
connected a dot with the higher education. What I think that not only the provision of higher education will do the work. What my understanding is, I had a course of higher education as well in my BS degree. The higher education doesn't only require you to do the text books and the concepts you learn in the classroom. That goes beyond that. And I think all the developing countries in particular need to develop that. Because when you learn outside the classroom, that is where you learn actually, because outside the classroom is the real learning. And just a flashback to my time, that when we used to have the group discussions over a particular research or particular group work, that didn't only restricted to the paperwork we were doing, that had different sort of discussions. So that is the main charisma of higher education, that should be inculcated in all the universities and all the institutions giving that, because that actually creates the appetite for learning. Not only getting education will minimize the violent extremism. This is my take on that. And secondly, on the political point of view, as I recall, in 2022, Pakistan developed a policy on to counter violent extremism. And as far as I read, it was revamped in 2023. It was decided to revamp, but now as we will be having elections on 8th Feb, they are very near, just almost a week to go. Then the government will might be working on that, because they decided in 2023, I think July 2023, that there should be more consultations within the stakeholders, including youth, civil society organizations, government officials, member of parliament, and the other stakeholders, including the minorities and the PWDs, whoever is in Pakistan, the different groups, they would be integrated into that policy discussions. So they would have more comprehensive policy that was also aligned with the national security policy, which came in the last government's tenure as well. That was very comprehensive. So for the government point of view, they are working at that as well, and they're also working with some international organizations like ICYF. I recall we worked with the ICYF. We organized a conference back in 2019, 2020 that was on violent extremism in Islamabad, Pakistan. So we engaged Ministry of Religious Affairs of Pakistan as well. So government is working on that. Yeah.
There's a Ministry of Religious Affairs, and what are they tasked with doing?
We actually engaged them to organize a conference to build awareness, particularly, and to raise our voice through the media channels and through other stakeholders that we need to work on violent extremism nationally and internationally as well. So that was the main core purpose of that.
Interesting. Any other contributions from the panel about interventions led by the government? Maybe we should also ask about interventions from civil society and youth.
Yeah, there are policies that have been framed, like there's the national youth policy, and then there's the provincial youth policies. And I don't know the details of the violence extremism aspects of it, but it does cover some like the topic of extremism, violent extremism, how to combat through youth intervention, and I think there is I mean, I know for sure that education is like identified as a tool to help combat the violence extremism. And then there's participation of the INGOs, of the local NGOs, the civil society, to help support that cause. Like how Danish mentioned, I was part of that conference as well, where it was promoting the role of women in combating violence extremism. So it was targeting that niche that is not talked about much in Pakistan, but that's a significant role of the pop. Like women is a big part of the population that can play a very good role in desensitizing or putting down that sensitivity to this whole idea, this whole subject. So there's definitely role of the civil society that's been played within the country, and then there is interest of the government as well, which makes sense. I mean, if the population is going towards extremism, then it's counter effective for the government. So they must tackle it, right?
Thank you for that. Violent extremist groups are known to target institutions of higher learning to recruit students. What can be done to reduce this?
I think that goes again to what Qasim mentioned earlier, that this is a developing country, and people use them as a resource. And I think students in the higher education who do not have any sort of other exposure are very fragile to that. And I think this is what the extremist groups actually do. To minimize that, I think government should make strict policies on that, and the student unions which were used to be there, they should be there again, because they used to build their capacity for the political gains and for their own self capacity building work. They used to do that actually. So I think student unions should be there, they should be developed, and the government should put a strict margins on that, that there won't be any extremist party or extremist groups would be reachable. And when they would do that, the people would sit together and discuss different sorts of issues, because we have seen that there are issues within the cultures. So when they won't sit on a same table, how would they discuss and how would they actually minimize those? So that is my take on that. And one more thing, that on the government point, the civil society organizations should be taken as partners by the governments and by their ministries in particular. Whenever they are building policies, whenever they are making decisions, they should take the civil society organizations as partners, but not as beneficiaries or any pressure group in the technical term. In reality, we, the civil society organizations, are there to help the government to build a better environment for the people. So this is what government need to understand.
I am happy that you mentioned the point about student unions being, well, they were essentially discontinued, and you told me why they were discontinued. Tell our listeners, why is it that student unions in Pakistan were discontinued?
Exactly what I have mentioned, that they were easily reachable by the extremist groups, and that is why I mentioned that government should put a strict ruling to that, that they won't be reachable by the extremist groups, and so they won't get banned again. Societies and those groups working and sitting together in the universities, so they would have a healthy discussion. When they would have a healthy discussion, they would understand that what are the cultural barriers of this particular culture and how that is similar to us, not to define the differences, but to have a knowledge about the similarities. So they
Yes.
would be on one page.
Yes. Well, for added context, listeners may not be aware that student unions were banned because they were they were essentially breeding ground and recruiting ground for violent extremist groups in Pakistan. But I hear from you that we should restore these student unions and they need to be treated as partners. Work with them, train them so that they can be a part of the solution. And from the CSA's perspective, wherein our members come from national student organizations and student unions, we take a particular interest in this point, that student activism is essentially being muzzled as a response to an issue where really we would want to invite the government of Pakistan to co-create, to collaborate, and to treat student unions, which form part of civil society, as partners, not just beneficiaries. Thank you for making that point, Danish. Well, we're coming down and we're coming towards the end of our discussion. A few weeks ago, we had a discussion with students from and leaders from Malaysia. And for the first time, we discussed Islamic religious education. And I learned quite a bit about Islamic religious education. And so I want to ask, how can Islamic religious education be used as a strategic tool to combat violent extremism? I guess anybody who is comfortable with that. I mean, it calls for some creativity, perhaps, and way to think about it.
Yeah, no, I think I understand the idea. I don't know what you had, like you discussed with the students and leaders from Malaysia, but like I said, it's I think every country, like there are I think 50 plus, somewhere between 50 to 60 Muslim countries around the world, right? I wouldn't believe that every country could map the same education system. If we talk about Islamic religious education, because of the different dynamics, even though it's the same religion, but the cultural dynamics, the level of education, all of these things, they do matter. from the Pakistan's perspective, I feel religion is it's very sensitive to a lot of people. There's a lot of divide between the people as well. So it's, you have to take it with a grain of salt, I would say. Having those, having the material from the religion that could help, combat violence and extremism, I think it's very important, because I personally feel like I've read like different religions, that no religion seems to be promoting violence or extremism. Interestingly, Islam actually means peace. That's what the word means, the word itself. So it sounds very absurd that, religion that is actually meant peace is promoting violence or extremism. I mean, this is how it's treated, right? I mean, a lot of people perceive it that way. So while we speak about the education of people through religion, I think it's also like what we discussed initially. It's also about, educating other people to, have an open mindset and not just be buying into the narrative of the media and, what's been told or what's been shared with them. I cannot speak much about, and I haven't really answered your question. I've just kind of spun it into another angle.
Yes.
Because it's, like I said, it's really difficult to, to implement or find a solution that could, map onto the whole country for educating people through religion to combat violence and extremism. But I've just given you an insight that, it's important, because if we look into all the religions, like deeply and closely, you will not find any religion promoting, any extremism. And from Islam's perspective, I've just given an example that the word itself means peace. So it probably does not make sense, at least not to me, that, it could be, even if I haven't like read it deeply, that it could do something like that, right? So I'm sure there are ways to do it, but I'm sorry, I'm not an expert, so I'm not going to go into it.
Very well, very well. But as an outsider, to my mind, I get what you're saying about peace.
Yeah.
But to my mind, all that needs to be done is be louder about the truth in the teaching, which the teaching in itself is a response to the problem. From what they explained to me about the good values and the teachings and the life practices about brotherly love and kindness and how you treat your neighbor, that is enshrined in the whole body of teaching of Islamic religious education, it in itself is a response. It would discourage persons. In every religion, there are persons who will try to weave things around to fit their own doctrine. And that's how you have different sects and factions coming up about. And, you will need the voice of truth in that space, meaning those who hold firm to the core to speak out what that is. Yes? I mean, I am a Christian, and you know very well that people use the Bible to do all sorts of things and justify all sorts of madness, but it will never change the truth and foundation of what we believe. So, that's that. I won't go any further with that question. I appreciate the sensitivity of it. I want to invite you, panelists, to render your closing remarks in Urdu. I want you to share with our listeners your closing perspective on the role of higher education in combating violent extremism in Pakistan, and then we will come to the end of our 10th episode of the CSA Fireside Chat. Let's start with Khadija.
Higher education institutes in Pakistan basically plays a crucial role. So there are 5 factors. One is counter radicalization education, in which providing education that promotes critical thinking, tolerance, and understanding to counter radical ideologies. And the second one is research and analysis, conducting research on the root causes of extremism and developing strategies for conducting radicalization. Third one is community engagement, which is very important. Actively engaging with local communities to foster a sense of belonging, inclusivity, and social cohesion. And the fourth one is teacher training, which is also very important because teachers are the ones who teach, right? Offering training program for educators to recognize signs of radicalization and effectively address them. And the fifth one is promoting diversity and inclusion, creating an inclusive and diverse academic environment that respects various culture, religious, and ethical backgrounds. These are the factors which is very important when we are thinking about educational institute in Pakistan. These are the factors which play a role in every kind of aspect, just like different kind of culture, which is Pakistan is enhanced in culture diversity. So, and community engagement, which is also a very pivotal point. So these are the factors we have to mainly focus on. Thank you.
Thanks, Khadija. Well received. We would still love to hear both or either of the remaining panelists render their closing remarks in Urdu. We're doing this because one of the strategic advocacy points of the CSA for our tenure is decolonizing education, with a special focus on appreciating local language and promoting the language of instruction as the local language. So I don't speak Urdu and will likely not understand what you have to say, but your listeners who are from Pakistan will. And I want them to feel part of this chat through hearing Urdu. So Danish and Kasim, take it away.
जो लोग भी मुझे सुन रहे हैं, मेरा उनके लिए यही पैगाम है कि वायलेंट एक्सट्रीमिज्म का आपके रिलीजन से कोई लेना देना नहीं है। तो पाकिस्तान का जो इमेज है, जो पीसफुल हमारा एक और एक अमन पसंद जो हम लोग हैं, वो दिखाना बहुत ज़रूरी है। और वो सिर्फ पढ़ाई लिखाई से ही हो सकता है। और आप जब किसी भी दूसरे से मिलते हैं, किसी भी दूसरे मुल्क जाते हैं, तो एक अच्छे पाकिस्तानी शहरी बनकर दिखाएं। आप लोगों को पता होगा, जब आप लोग खास तौर पर सफ़र करते हैं तो हम लाइनें भी तोड़ते हैं। तो ये चीज़ें हमें कम करनी पड़ेंगी, हमें ये चीज़ें बिल्कुल निगेट करनी पड़ेंगी ताकि हमारा एक अच्छा इमेज जा सके। दूसरी चीज़ ये है कि बहुत सारे इख्तलाफात आते हैं। आपके जो साथ पढ़ने वाले लोग हैं, जिनके साथ आप उठते बैठते हैं, हर चीज़ को अमन पसंदी और एक अच्छी शख्सियत बनकर उस चीज़ को हल करें, ना कि किसी किस्म के एक्सट्रीमिज्म में जाएं। क्योंकि ये एक्सट्रीमिज्म जो है फिर कनेक्ट करता है हमारी शनाख्त के साथ, जो कि सब्ज रंग है, जो कि पाकिस्तानी होने का फिर दिखाता है कि ये पाकिस्तानी है, ये है ही ऐसा। तो इस चीज के खिलाफ हमें खड़े होना है और एक अच्छे पाकिस्तानी बनकर हमें सामने आना है। बहुत शुक्रिया। थैंक यू सो मच मैन।
Anything you want to say thank you in Urdu?
बहुत शुक्रिया।
Oh,
शुक्रिया।
shukriya. Shukriya. Oh, nice. That's nice. Kasim,
Thanks,
take
Ben.
us away. Yes.
First of all, I would say I really appreciate the opportunity here and the idea of the use of local language that it really helps in realizing the value that it has, right? Even though a lot of our things are westernized and Americanized, like our culture, and it's getting there, right? So we need to find these opportunities to keep on reviving our culture and language and all of those values that we carry, because that is really what makes us unique, right? So I'm going to give the message in English, and then I'm going to say the same message in Urdu, because I believe the audience is not just restricted to Pakistan, it's across the Commonwealth, right? So I would like each one of us to understand what I'm saying. So I think very quickly, I would say that education is the way forward. That's the theme of it. And when you invited me to this meeting, I was really interested because I believe in it. And I've seen it through my own learning and experience, how I have, transformed over the years. I started in Pakistan, I educated myself there, and then I came to abroad for my further education or higher education. And that opened me up for different or other cultures or religions, and it changed my perspective, and it allowed me to accept other people with their own unique personalities and their own unique living. Uh, so education is the way forward, specifically for people in Pakistan, I think, because it's a country where religion is widely practiced. Islam is widely practiced. There are other religions that exist as well. To them, to all of us, the message will be that educate yourself, no matter how where you find an opportunity. It's easy now. There's social media, there's digital media that can allow you to educate yourself, and then from the books that you read for your religion, for every religion that exists in Pakistan, read it yourself. Don't rely on somebody else to teach it to you, because the message is clear. Just as how you quoted earlier, that Bible doesn't teach things that people are doing in the name of Bible. Similarly, there are things that people around the world are doing in the name of Quran, but Quran does not teach any of that, or Islam does not teach any of that. So the responsibility really falls on to the young person to educate themselves without really buying into the narrative of what the media is saying, or what the leader is saying, or what the politician is saying. So my message in Urdu, the same message is that अपने अंदर एक लगन लाएं एजुकेशन के लिए, पढ़ाई के लिए, तालीम के लिए, जिस भी तरह से आप कर सकें. आप ऑनलाइन डिजिटल मीडिया प्लेटफॉर्म्स के थ्रू अपने आप को तालीम देने की कोशिश करें, तालीम लेने की कोशिश करें, क्योंकि उससे आपके अंदर आपको पता चलेगा दुनिया में क्या हो रहा है, लोग आपस में एक दूसरे के साथ कैसे रह रहे हैं, और वो आपके अंदर काफ़ी चीज़ें बदलता है. आप में बहुत सा ठहराव आता है, आप में बहुत सा पेशेंस आता है, अगले बंदे को बात करने का, बात सुनने का एक मार्जिन मिलता है. और दूसरी तरफ ये है कि जो हमें दीन की एक तालीम मिलती है दुनिया से या फिर हमारे आसपास लोगों से, उसको कोशिश करें खुद लें. कुरान को पढ़ें. अगर आप किसी और दीन से ताल्लुक़ रखते हैं, जो भी आपकी मज़हब है, उसकी अपनी जो भी किताब है उसको पढ़ें, ना कि आप लोगों से सुने और दूसरे मीडियम से सुने और फिर उस पर अमल करें. कोशिश करें उसको खुद पढ़ें, खुद समझें और फिर उस पर अमल करें. So it was the same message that I gave in English, Benjamin. If you want to learn a little Urdu, maybe you could just try go word to word and it'll teach you a few words in Urdu as well. I'm just kidding. It wasn't word to word. It was almost the same message, but it wasn't word to word. So thank you once again for giving us the opportunity for hosting this platform. I wish you all the good luck, and I hope this journey continues.
Shukriya, Danish. Shukriya, Kasim. Shukriya, Khadija. It was my absolute pleasure. But I must tell you before we go that the sequel to the CSA Fireside is coming up in a few weeks. And for this particular podcast, it will be a think tank led not by me or any EXCO member, but by young people from the Commonwealth in their local language entirely. It's our strategy to expand the reach of the CSA beyond English speakers, because that is limited. And we are quite aware that the diversity in the Commonwealth goes beyond the number of persons who speak English. I mean, there are millions of Hindi, Urdu, Swahili speakers that we want to reach. So I really am looking forward to giving the microphone, quite literally, to young people who we will also trust to follow our guidelines, not to say anything inappropriate. We're here not understanding and you're here thrashing somebody. But I believe that the Rojak, as we're calling it, it's a Malay word which means, mixture, diversity. We think the Rojak think tank series will be a game changer in the reach of the CSA. That depends heavily on the virtual space to reach its constituents. We can't get 1.4 billion young people in a conference. So we have to find ways to maximize on social media. And as far as I'm concerned, we have not yet exhausted the opportunities available through social media. Though to do that, we need money. You know, you need people to manage all these things. But with the little energy we have until money comes, the Rojak will do what we are, you know, seeking to do. So thank you very much. I'm going to end it here. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Ben. Take care.
Thank you, Ben. Bye-bye.